report from my visit to Gruenheide and the Tesla Gigafactory. This is the Not In Wrong podcast. It's June 2nd, 2022. This is Krim Delko. This is the second episode today. The market's actually already open. I don't have access to the P&L, so just let's leave it like in the first episode, which was recorded before market open. We're down 40.8%. The market is down 13.4%. We're underperforming by 27.4%. I am in Gruenheide right now, which is the village right next to the Tesla Gigafactory. I visited the Gigafactory. I wasn't inside. I couldn't get permits to get inside, so I walked around. I took pictures. So here's my impression. It's about an hour ride from the downtown Berlin. You take a train, and then there's a shuttle bus. So you can actually live in a very hip part of Berlin and work in this factory. This is, first and foremost, obviously very important. This is very similar to Austin, Texas. And it supports the argument that Tesla wanted to put these factories next to places that are nice to live, fun, and not just in the middle of nowhere. So this is number one. I think the most important takeaway from this visit is that Gruenheide itself is first a pretty high-end village, and second, it's actually a tourist destination. There's lots of lakes here. And I think now I understand why there was so much opposition from a certain part of the local community, because it seems to me, just looking at the workforce at Tesla and generally the way it works in places like this, is that the locals here in Gruenheide, they don't work there. For them, this factory is, I would say, a nuisance, because it brings industry, it brings foreigners, all these things that come with sort of parochial towns that don't like people that look different, don't like people that speak different. On the bus to the Tesla factory, I only heard English and Polish. So that's, I spoke with two engineers. They're visiting from Austin. They are here just to test stuff out. They're both, one had an Indian accent, English Indian accent, and the other was maybe Filipino or something. A typical site you would see in America with people working in a place like Tesla. Here, certainly, it's becoming typical, of course, for Tesla, because Tesla is Tesla. No matter where you go, they're going to attract similar types of people. But the locals here in Gruenheide, they don't seem very happy about this. I can understand why they're fighting for the water. The lakes here are a big source of tourism, and that's what this place is. There's houses to rent, apartments for rent. There's beaches. People come here from Berlin, spend the summers on the beach. So it's that kind of place. It looks pretty high-end, I would say. It reminds me of the Black Forest. It has almost the cleanliness of a Swiss town, which particularly for the former east part of Germany means that this is definitely pretty high-end. So that's my conclusion from this trip. A little bit the impressions. The factory, like any of the other gigafactories, is a very large, impressive building. It's, I would say, 1/3 done. So there's a lot of construction still happening. You can see roads being paved. You can see buildings being raised. There's cranes. There's maybe, I would say 1/4 of the parking space or potential future parking space is taken. Everything else is, gravel, and there's machines there. There's temporary antennas set up by Vodafone. So this looks like this is still a fairly new place. There's very little, there's no visitor center or anything like that. This is a work in progress. It doesn't look like Fremont at all. Even when I visited Fremont the first time in 2013, when Tesla was, I think, at 20,000 capacity per annum, talking about a potential 500,000 cars, which we thought was very ambitious. Anyway, even back then, Fremont looked a lot more developed, because Fremont obviously was a factory was taken over from GM and Toyota. So it wasn't a new factory. This is a brand new factory built from scratch. There is security is it looks a bit like a concert situation, like an open air concert where you have fences and then security in the middle of nowhere on gravel. There's boxes where security guards stay in. Controls are being taken, fairly stringent. I wasn't able to get in, which I didn't expect. I'm saying that this is, even though it's very rudimentary still, it is functioning. There's the Vodafone antennas. There's access to the internet. There's buses. There's the train very close. Everything is working. but it's not very well developed. Let's say the train station, you come from Berlin, it's just a very nondescript train station. You walk to the bus. I could envision in the future coffee shops, maybe even some stores. I envision a motel, like all that kind of stuff. Nothing is there. There's absolutely nothing. And Gruenheide is on the other side. So if you stop in the train stop, the station is literally in the middle of nowhere. And then you turn left, you go about a kilometer to Gruenheide, and you turn right, you go a kilometer to the Gigafactory. So the train station is in the middle of nowhere. This place has a lot of traffic from tourism, and now, of course, the traffic is overwhelmingly Tesla. And I can see why people here locally are probably not so happy. I mean, this is a not in my backyard situation, and the mayor of Gruenheide, I'm surprised that they were able to push this through. Now, from what I've read and learned and listened to let's say the Elon Time podcast, the German podcast that used to talk about these things. I think what Gruenheide is trying to do is create an industrial center in the region, and they try to attract car companies and that kind of thing, and they attracted Tesla, and it's absolutely amazing to have Tesla here. This is probably the most advanced car manufacturing plant, if not the most advanced plant in the world, right here, and half an hour outside of the downtown Berlin by train. So when I said it takes an hour, it takes another half hour to with all the wait times and stuff. I mean, if you just pure train and bus, I would say it's maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And then you throw in a few minutes of wait time, and then of course depends where you live in Berlin. So your commute could be more like an hour and a half probably. So it adds up. But then you could maybe live somewhere closer in a part of Berlin that I don't know Berlin very well, and I would have to talk to people. The people that work at the factories, the people I've seen and spoken to, again, some of them are manufacturing engineers. The two that I spoke to actually came from Austin and are American. The locals look more like blue-collar workers. In a sense, they probably wouldn't live in very hip parts of Berlin, so they could live in the outskirts of Berlin towards the factory, and then reduce their commute time by probably 30% or so. So this is a good situation, a very healthy situation. There's no pollution, of course. You don't see anything, and there's no factory type chimneys or anything like that. This is a very modern manufacturing plant, and it's a very positive thing. Last thing I want to say is when I'm in Berlin, I have a little bit of a heavy feeling. I spoke about this in my first episode of the travel blog, and I'm gonna hopefully make an episode either today, a third episode, or tomorrow, where I talk a little bit about the city and the way the city is laid out, and the whole feeling of a city. And I think cities have a soul. Cities have a soul because it is the soul of all the people that came here before and all the energy that is still here. And I feel like there's a certain heaviness with Berlin. It doesn't have that lightness and that optimism that, let's say, New York has. It doesn't have even less optimism than, let's say, London or Copenhagen. To me, Berlin has a bit of a heavy pull down, and it has to be the history, it has to be the souls and the terrible things that happened here. The city has been the epicenter of world politics from probably 1850 to 1945, so almost 100 years. It's created a lot of good new things, new knowledge, new science, art. It's been very progressive, but it has been unfortunately very destructive politically, and you can feel that. But when you come out to the Gigafactory, it's the opposite. It's optimism, it's lightness, it's future, it's energy. It feels great, and that to me was a very nice feeling to take away from this visit. Thank you.